I was standing in my daughter's kitchen in Asheville, North Carolina when she said it. Her voice was cold. "Then pack your things." The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound between us. My hands were still on the dish towel I'd been folding, but my chest felt like it had been hit by a brick. 15 years. 15 years of paying for her mortgage, her kids' school, every emergency, every unexpected bill. I buried my wife, moved into her home when she said family should stick together. And now, with one sentence, I was disposable. She didn't shout. She didn't have to. The way she looked at me told me everything my value to her ended when my bank account closed. I looked around her kitchen oak cabinets. I'd paid for granite countertops. I'd chosen a dining table I'd refinished by hand. Everything in this room had a piece of me in it, but in her eyes, none of it mattered. My name is Michael Harris, and what I did after she told me to get out would change everything. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted most, stay with me. This is not just a story about walking away. It's about taking back everything they thought they could keep. And if you believe in living free after betrayal, subscribe, because this one is for you. I was standing in my daughter's kitchen in Asheville, North Carolina, when the words landed like a punch I never saw coming. "Then pack your things." Rebecca didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The way she said it, a flat final, was sharper than any shout. For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound between us. My hands were still holding the dish towel I'd been folding, but my chest felt heavy, like someone had dropped a brick inside. 15 years. 15 years of mortgage payments, tuition checks replacing her broken appliances, covering emergencies that never seemed to end. After my wife passed, she'd said family should stick together. I moved in. I believed her. Now, with 6 words, I was disposable. I glanced around her kitchen oak cabinets. I'd paid for granite countertops. I'd chosen a dining table I'd refinished by hand. Every corner of this room held pieces of my time, my labor, my money, and in her eyes, none of it mattered. The smell of roast chicken lingered in the air. Outside the window, the Blue Ridge Mountains were fading into the orange of a late summer evening. In here, though the warmth was gone, my name is Michael Harris, and what I did after she told me to get out would change everything. If you've ever been betrayed by the people you trusted most, stay with me. This is my story, and if you believe in living free after betrayal, subscribe now. You won't want to miss how this ends. Rebecca wasn't always like this. At least I wanted to believe she wasn't. After Helen, my wife, passed away 12 years ago, I was lost. 40 years of marriage gone in one quiet hospital room. Rebecca had been the one to pull me back, saying family should stick together. She and David insisted I move into their place here in Asheville. At first, it felt like healing. I'd help with the mortgage, the utilities. I'd fix the squeaky doors, repaint the deck, keep the garden looking like something out of a magazine. I was useful, needed. David, my son-in-law, was always chasing the next big thing. One year it was a food truck, then a real estate flip, then some app he swore would change the market. Each one needed money. Each one failed. I told myself it was temporary, that once they got on their feet I could step back. But every time I tried, there was another emergency. The water heater broke. The kids' tuition was due. The car needed a new transmission. And then there was Lucas, my grandson. 20 years old, quiet, always watching. I couldn't read him. He didn't ask for much, but there was something in his eyes like he saw more than he said. Over the years, I'd written checks for everything from braces to birthday parties. It added up, but I never kept count. Maybe because I didn't want to know. Now, standing in that kitchen hearing Rebecca tell me to pack my things, I realized something I should have seen years ago. To them, I wasn't family. I was an ATM with a heartbeat. It was a Thursday night. Late summer in Asheville meant the windows were open, letting in that cool mountain breeze that carried the smell of pine. Rebecca had made roast chicken. Lucas was scrolling his phone, barely touching his plate. I was halfway through passing the mashed potatoes when David leaned back in his chair, grinning like he'd just cracked the code to the universe. "I've got something big," he said, tapping his phone. "An opportunity we can't miss." Rebecca's eyes lit up. "Tell him, honey." David turned the screen towards me, spreadsheets, market graphs, words like projected ROI flashing in blue. "It's a chain of EV repair shops. We've got the location, the model, the demand. All we need is the startup cash, about 180 grand. I set the potatoes down. "David, no." His grin faltered. "It's not a handout, it's an investment. In our future, in your grandkids' future." Rebecca's fork clinked against her plate. "Dad, this is huge for us." I shook my head. "I've been funding dreams for 15 years. None of them worked. I'm done." The silence that followed was so heavy I could hear the ice melting in my glass. Rebecca's face hardened. "Then you won't be living here much longer." For a moment, the air in that dining room felt colder than the breeze outside. My grip tightened on my glass. I didn't say another word, but in my head, something clicked. If she wanted me gone, she'd get her wish. The rest of that dinner felt like sitting in a freezer. No one spoke. The clink of silverware on porcelain became the only soundtrack. Even the breeze from the window seemed to hesitate before crossing the threshold. Rebecca kept her eyes on her plate, stabbing green beans like they'd personally offended her. David scrolled his phone under the table, pretending not to notice me. Lucas was different. He sat back, arms crossed, eyes moving between all three of us. He didn't touch his food, didn't look angry, just thoughtful. That kid had a way of watching, like he was storing every word, every expression for later. I stared at my plate, but my mind wasn't in that room anymore. I was back to last February, my birthday. Nobody remembered. Not Rebecca, not David, not even a text from Lucas, or the spring before that when I had knee surgery. 3 days in recovery, lying in that hospital bed. Rebecca came once for 20 minutes. David sent a card. Lucas never showed. The more I thought about it, the heavier the air felt. Lucas finally broke the silence, his voice quiet but steady. "Grandpa, are you okay?" I nodded, forcing a thin smile. "I'm fine." But I wasn't fine. I was calculating. If I was just a burden in their eyes, maybe it was time to stop being part of their equation. That night I couldn't sleep. The house was quiet, but not peaceful, more like the silence after a door slams. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan, each slow rotation ticking away another reason to stay. At 2 a.m. I got up and went to the small desk in the corner of my room. The bottom drawer held a thick manila folder, 15 years' worth of help. Mortgage receipts, tuition checks, car repairs, hospital bills, birthday parties. I started adding it up. $2,000 a month for the mortgage multiplied by years. Thousands for college, for trade school, for vacations I never went on. The numbers grew like weeds. By the time I was done, the total was nearly $500,000. $500,000. Not a single thank you that lasted more than a week. My fingers tapped the desk. My breathing slowed. I opened my laptop and typed Apartments Asheville into the search bar. 1-bedroom, quiet neighborhood close to the bus line. I bookmarked 3 listings. Next, I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Robert Lane's number, my lawyer from back when Helen and I did our will. I drafted a text, "Need to talk about closing financial access. Urgent." I hit send before I could talk myself out of it. By the time the sun came up, I wasn't just thinking about leaving. I was planning my exit. The next morning, I was in Robert Lane's office before his coffee had cooled. Robert had been our family lawyer for years, handled Helen's estate, the sale of our old house, even my VA benefits. He leaned back in his chair, studying me over his glasses. "What's going on, Michael?" "I'm done funding their lives," I said. "I want to close every door they can walk through to get to my money." He didn't flinch, just nodded and opened a file on his desk. Power of attorney. "Gone," I said. "We went through everything: joint accounts, automatic transfers, access cards. For years, $4.200 had been sliding out of my account into Rebecca's every month without a hitch." By noon, the transfer was history. Then Robert pulled out something else. "We can set up a trust. Beneficiary, someone you actually trust." I thought of Lucas, quiet, observant, but I wasn't ready to decide. For now, it stays in my name. I'll make changes later. Robert's pen scratched across the papers, his secretary notarizing each page with a heavy stamp. Every thud of that stamp felt like a brick in a wall I was finally building around myself. When I walked out of his office, the air felt lighter. For the first time in years, my money was mine. 2 days later, I stood in the driveway with the keys in my hand. Rebecca's SUV was gone, probably at her shift at the clinic. David's pickup wasn't there either. Good. I wanted this to be clean. The moving truck pulled in right on time. 3 guys hopped out quick and efficient. I'd labeled everything the night before, blue tape for what was mine, nothing else. Inside, I moved fast. My photo albums, my military service medals, Helen's jewelry box, the oak desk I'd refinished in my first year living here. All of it went into boxes. The piano stayed. Rebecca had claimed it after Helen's funeral. Let her keep it. In less than 2 hours, my life was condensed into a dozen boxes and 2 pieces of furniture. The movers loaded the last item and handed me the clipboard to sign. Before I locked the front door for the last time, I left a plain white envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside, a note in my own handwriting. "Rebecca, I've moved out. I've ended my financial support. You wanted independence, now you have it. Don't contact me until you're ready to apologize. My address will remain private. Dad." I set the keys beside it, took one last look at the house, and walked out without looking back. By sunset, I was in my new apartment, small, quiet, and mine. I had barely finished unpacking the last box when my phone lit up. "Rebecca?" I let it ring twice before answering. "Dad!" Her voice was sharp, almost panicked. "Your stuff is gone." "What's this note on the counter? You can't just leave like this." "I moved out," I said evenly. "You can't. This is your home." I leaned against my kitchen counter, looking out the window at the quiet street below. "You told me I wouldn't be living there much longer. I took your advice." There was a pause. Then David's voice, loud enough to cut through the speaker. "Michael, we can work this out." "The business." I cut him off. "Find another investor?" Rebecca's voice cracked, shifting from anger to pleading. "Dad, please. We're behind on the mortgage. If the bank calls again, that's not my problem anymore." Silence. I could almost hear her processing the fact that I meant it this time. "This is cruel," she whispered finally. "Family takes care of each other." I exhaled slowly. "For 15 years, I took care of you. Now it's your turn to take care of yourself." Before she could answer, I ended the call. Outside, the late afternoon sun dipped behind the mountains, casting my new apartment in a warm, golden glow. It felt like the first light of my own freedom. 3 days passed without a word. I thought maybe they'd finally gotten the message. Then, Friday evening, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw David standing there holding a grocery store bouquet, cheap flowers wrapped in crinkled plastic. Rebecca was a step behind him, arms crossed, face carefully arranged into what she probably thought looked like regret. I opened the door just enough to block their view of the apartment. "Dad." Rebecca started, her voice soft, almost rehearsed. "We just want to talk." David stepped forward, smile plastered on. "We overreacted the other night. The business thing, it's not just about us, it's about the whole family's future." I shook my head. The whole family's future stopped being my financial responsibility when I walked out that door. Rebecca's tone sharpened. "So you're just going to let us lose everything? You've had 15 years to build something on your own. I'm not responsible for what you didn't do." David's smile slipped. "You're making a mistake, Michael. Family should stick together. Family should respect each other," I said. "You lost that the night you told me to get out." The silence that followed was thick enough to touch. Rebecca glanced at the flowers like they might save her. "They can go in the trash," I said, and closed the door. The next Sunday, it wasn't just Rebecca and David. At 6 p.m., my door shook under heavy knocks. When I looked through the peephole, half my extended family was standing there, Rebecca, David, their son Lucas, and to my surprise, David's parents, Harold and Linda. They'd come like it was some kind of intervention. "Michael, open up," Harold barked. "This has gone on long enough." I cracked the door, but stayed in the frame. "What do you want?" Rebecca stepped forward, mascara smudged. "Dad, we can't keep up the mortgage without you. The bank's calling every day. Please, we're family." I met her eyes. "You told me to leave." I listened. Linda's voice sliced in, dripping with judgment. "A real man doesn't turn his back on his children." I almost laughed. "A real adult doesn't drain their parents' savings for over a decade." David gestured toward my apartment. "Can we at least talk inside?" "No." The hallway was thick with their voices, Rebecca pleading, Harold lecturing, Linda guilt-tripping. Even Lucas looked uncomfortable. Finally, I raised my voice just enough to cut through the noise. "I gave you 15 years and nearly $500,000. In return, I got forgotten birthdays and orders to get out. This conversation is over." I stepped back and closed the door with deliberate finality. Through the wood, I could still hear them arguing. But inside my apartment was quiet, exactly the way I wanted it. 2 days after the family showdown, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. "Grandpa." "It's Lucas." His voice was hesitant, like he wasn't sure I'd pick up. I kept my tone neutral. "What's on your mind?" I don't think Mom and Dad are handling this right." He paused. "They've been blaming you for everything, but I remember what you've done for us. All those years you paid for school birthdays, trips." I leaned back in my chair. "Lucas, gratitude doesn't mean much if you stay silent when people treat someone badly." "That's why I'm calling," he said quickly. "I don't want to be part of ganging up on you. I'm moving out next month, got a job offer in Charlotte. I want to do it on my own." For a moment, I didn't say anything. This was the first time in years someone in that house had spoken about independence without asking for money. "I'm proud of you," I said finally. "You'll find life feels a lot better when you're steering your own ship." He chuckled softly. "I think so too. And if you're okay with it, I'd like to visit sometime. Just to talk, not about money. You're welcome any time," I told him. And I meant it. When the call ended, I sat in the quiet, a small but undeniable sense of victory settling in. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of a new chapter, not just for me, but for at least one member of the family. A week later, I was enjoying my morning coffee on the balcony when my phone lit up with Rebecca's name. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. Her voice came through shaky, almost broken. "Dad, they're foreclosing on the house. We have 30 days to move." I let the words hang there. "I'm sorry to hear that." She exhaled sharply, a mix of frustration and desperation. David's been trying to get loans, but his credit is ruined. I've been working double shifts, and it's still not enough. We don't have anywhere to go. Rebecca, I said evenly, I told you months ago this was coming. I gave you years to prepare. You chose not to. There was a pause. Then her voice dropped to almost a whisper. I thought you were bluffing. I thought you'd come back. I sipped my coffee. That was your mistake. She tried again, more pleading now. Can you at least help us find a place just until we get on our feet? No, I said simply. Helping you now would undo every lesson life's trying to teach you. The silence on the line was heavy. I could almost hear her swallowing pride and anger all at once. Goodbye, Rebecca. I hung up, set the phone down, and looked out over the quiet street. For the first time in years, their crisis wasn't mine to solve, and that felt like real freedom. 2 weeks after Rebecca's call, I was on the porch of my small lakeside cabin grilling salmon with Lucas. He'd driven up from Charlotte for the weekend, his face calmer, his voice steadier than I'd ever heard it. Grandpa, I signed the lease on my own apartment, he said with a proud grin. Feels good knowing I did it myself. I clapped him on the shoulder. That's the kind of independence no one can take from you. As we sat down to eat, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Dad, it's Rebecca. We're moving into a small rental tomorrow. I still don't understand why you wouldn't help, but maybe someday I will. I stared at the message for a moment, then set the phone face down on the table. Lucas raised an eyebrow. Everything okay? Better than okay, I said. She's learning the hard way, but she's learning. The lake shimmered in the late afternoon sun, and for the first time in decades, my life felt mine. No emergency calls, no late-night demands, just peace earned the hard way. Lucas lifted his glass. To doing it ourselves. I smiled, clinking mine against his. To freedom. The breeze off the water carried the smell of pine and charcoal, and I realized this was the real revenge. Not shouting, not payback, but living well, while those who used you finally learn they can't anymore. As the sun dipped low over Lake Lure, painting the water in shades of gold and copper, I sat with Lucas on the porch, the quiet hum of the evening wrapping around us. He was telling me about his new job in Charlotte, the co-workers he actually liked, the pride in earning his own rent. For the first time in a long while, I realized I wasn't carrying someone else's burden. I was just listening, present in the moment. Rebecca hadn't called again since the move. Maybe she was still angry. Maybe she was starting to understand. Either way, the silence was a gift. I looked at Lucas, this young man who had chosen integrity over entitlement, and I thought, this is family. Not the people who demand your sacrifice, but the ones who respect your boundaries, who meet you as equals. We clinked our glasses, and for the first time, I didn't feel the hollow ache of what I'd left behind. I felt the fullness of what I'd chosen. If you're listening to this and you've been used, manipulated, or made to feel guilty for protecting your own peace, remember, you have the right to choose your family. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is close a door and never open it again. If my story resonates with you, I'd love for you to join me here. Subscribe, share your own journey, and maybe together we can build a space where respect, independence, and real love actually mean something. The morning after Lucas left, I brewed coffee and stepped out onto the deck. The lake was calm, glassy, reflecting the early sunlight like it had been polished overnight. It hit me then this was the first season in 15 years where I woke up without someone else's crisis waiting in my voicemail. No frantic calls, no urgent texts, just peace. Rebecca and David were now in a cramped rental somewhere across town, learning what late bills and real budgets feel like. I didn't need to see it. I didn't need to gloat. Their struggle was theirs finally. Lucas had gone back to Charlotte with his head high proud of what he'd earned himself. That was enough proof that my boundaries weren't just walls. They were guideposts for anyone willing to see them. I sat down at the deck table, coffee warm in my hands, and realized this was the revenge I'd been waiting for. Not slamming doors, not shouting matches, but living well, sleeping soundly, eating when I'm hungry, laughing without guilt. Because nothing unsettles those who tried to control you more than realizing they have no power over your life anymore. If you're hearing my voice right now, maybe you've been where I was bleeding yourself dry to keep someone else comfortable. I'm telling you, the sweetest revenge isn't payback. It's freedom. It's happiness on your terms. And if you want to hear more stories about reclaiming your life and standing your ground, hit subscribe. Not just for me, but for you, because we've got a lot more to talk about.